Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm back for my next video. Like I mentioned in the Jaguars preview video, I'm hoping to pump out at least one of these every day for at least this next week or so. Got some friends coming here at the end of next week, so I will have to be a good friend and try to be with them as much as possible. So there may be a week or so where I don't create videos, but I will try to maybe get one or two during that time. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Today's video, I'm going to preview the New York Jets roster. This is just going to be like the Jaguars video. So if you did not watch that Jaguars video, please go back and watch it. But just in case you didn't, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this New York Jets roster. I'm going to share my feelings on the whole unit, offensive unit, the whole defensive unit, and I'm giving it a little bit of a fantasy football twist. Kind of giving you my feelings on if I would draft them, if how I feel like their seasons could go, stuff like that. Just so you guys know, this is also influenced by the Prospect Encyclopedia. The Prospect Encyclopedia, for those who don't know, it's something that we create. Well, my buddy Roy Countryman, it's his. It came from his brain. He created it. We started it at Blitzalytics. It's underneath the Draft Bible name right now, and it basically what it is. It's a top 22 list of players from all 32 teams that we think that could be potential, either stars to backup role players in the league. It's a pretty cool list. To make the list, you have to be from the last 3 NFL draft classes, and you have to have less than 12 career starts to your name. So these are guys that are still gaining experience, but you're going to get, it's anywhere from like star first round players to backup players to practice squad guys that maybe we can think and make the roster. The reason when I say that is I use the projected starters from that book. It's about to come out here in a couple weeks, and then if you do see a star next to any of these players' names when I go over this, that they are in that book. I'm not going to go too much in depth about them because I want you to read that writer's work. And there's some scouting reports and how that writer feels that player is going to perform between the preseason and towards the end of this year. Let's go ahead and get into this though. Yeah, the New York Jets. They were the second worst team last year as far as I'm following this in the draft order. Started with the Jaguars, doing the Jets today now. But they are, I think, heading in the right direction. The first right direction they did is they did hire Robert Saleh. I think he's going to be one heck of a coach for New York. I think his bravada, his mentality is going to finally, I think, at least start to change the culture in New York. I don't know if we're going to see that translate into a lot of wins in year one, but he's a guy I think if he can get the right players in the right places within his scheme and within that organization, I think by the time it's year 3 underneath Robert Saleh, I think he could build this New York Jets into a really competitive team. And they do have some pillars already in place to make that happen. But yeah, I think Robert Saleh is going to be one heck of a coach for New York. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to translate to year 1 success. I think it's going to be down the road, but I think they got a really good coach there for the Jets. And we'll see if he can be the one that finally turns things around and get them to the playoffs for the first time, since the Rex Ryan days, I think now that's over a decade ago. Before I move on, slight cool Robert Saleh story. For those that don't know, I used to work for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was a big fan of getting to the stadium early, sitting down in a seat and just kind of relaxing before we got into meetings. And I was busy with my 10-12 hour day being at the stadium, and I would always pick a seat and just kind of hang out. If anybody's seen the previews of 49ers games, or of 49ers games of the past, he likes to run the stadium stairs. I was just sitting there, all of a sudden somebody comes running up. It's Robert Saleh. We lock eyes. We both nod at each other. He goes on his day, but it's something slight. It's something a little of note, but I always like to share that story. That me and Robert Saleh locked eyes one day. Not in that type of way, by the way. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. Taking a quick look at this as we head now into the season. The New York Jets have the 4th most cap space, so they can make some moves if they wanted to. Some notable players entering their contract year. Marcus May is playing this year on the franchise tag. Now, I said this, believe on my Twitter a couple weeks ago when when the deadline passed to give these franchise tag guys extensions. It just didn't make any sense to me why New York didn't give him an extension. They have plenty of space right now, and if I remember right, they have like the second or third most, or maybe even the most cap space for 2022. So they definitely could have gave him a deal. He's a homegrown talent. He's a leader in the locker room, and they don't really have much people to pay in the future. So that's one I didn't get. Obviously, Jamison Crowder, they had actually reworked his deal where he's going to be a free agent after the end of the year. And then Christopher Herndon, I'll talk about him more in depth here shortly. But he's a guy that maybe can finally take that jump in his career that some people like me thought he could do in the NFL, and maybe he can get himself a payday at the end of the year. I don't see any of these three guys getting any type of an extension before the season. Obviously, Marcus May can't. Jamison Crowder, his writing's on the wall. He's done with the Jets after this year. And then Herndon's going to have to prove it on the field. So maybe they re-sign him at the end of the year. Now, technically, there are a bunch of guys on this roster that they signed for one-year deals, like Morgan Moses, the new right tackle they signed. I don't list those guys in contract years because technically they just signed them for 1 year. If you see any going forward, anybody that's in contract years, that usually means they've been on the team at least for like 2 or 3 seasons, and they're entering the last of the year of their contract. So yeah, I don't see that going to happen. Maybe they try to maybe go acquire somebody, but this is a rebuilding year for this is a rebuilding and a developmental year for New York. So I don't see them making many major moves between now and the season to acquire any type of big name talent type of guys. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this offense. Again, this projected starters, these are from the Prospect Encyclopedia. The Pat Pryor, he did also write the New York Jets section, so these are directly from him. He's a good pal of mine I've worked closely with for 2 or 3 years. So go give him a follow if you're on Twitter at Pryor NFL. He's a good guy. Let's take a look at this projected starters that he has. Obviously, Zach Wilson. He's the guy we're going to talk about right now, the rookie quarterback, second overall pick. Kid's got a crazy arm talent, and we're going to have to see if he can translate that to the NFL. He had basically 1 good year of success at BYU. So we're going to have to see if that was a fluke or not. I think he's got plenty of talent to succeed at the next level. I still have my doubts about Zach Wilson just because he kind of looks tiny to me out there on the field. Looks like if I was playing quarterback, so I wonder if he had one good hit could take him out. But they do have they have improved their offensive line. Let's just say that. We'll have to see how it translates on the field. But as far as Zach Wilson in fantasy realms, I mean, I can see people drafting him at the a last round pick just because he is going to have the ball in his hands starting on day one in game one. He's got some weapons between Davis, Crowder, and Mims. Maybe Herndon takes that next jump. And he's still got Elijah Moore. I mean, he's got a decent wide receiver room if all guys can stay healthy and play up to their potential. So, and then you're talking about more than likely that defense is going to have their struggles this year. So he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. So there is a path that Zach Wilson could actually be a productive fantasy quarterback. But I just think he's going to have his ebbs and flows, his ups and downs. I think he's going to have one game where he probably lights up some defenses and looks good. Whether it comes in a loss. But then I think he's going to have his rookie moments where maybe he just struggles on an afternoon, throws a couple picks, doesn't get you many points. So, I mean, I could totally understand if anybody wants to take a gamble on him. But I would get a veteran quarterback to go with him. I would at least start the season with a veteran quarterback and see how Zach plays in that first month of the year. Tevin Coleman's right now the projected starter. Little stat. I like to pull stats from the last 3 years combined, see how players have performed in that small sample size. Kind of gives you an idea who's been the productive players of the last 3 years. And Tevin Coleman has the 9th most yards per receptions since 2018 among running backs, and he's averaging 8.6 yards per reception. So he's been effective with the receptions he's got. Now I do want to point out that is a minimum of 12 starts. So a guy like Nyheim Hines probably has a higher yards per reception than Tevin Coleman, but he doesn't get the starts. So I try to use the starts to weed out guys that maybe you're not going to draft to be a full-time starter on your fantasy roster. But Tevin Coleman right now, I would expect him to, just like Pat projected, I would expect him to be the starting back to start the year. I just don't know how that's going to play out throughout the season. he's coming he's coming with Robert Saleh from San Francisco, so he knows the LaFleur offense. Mike LaFleur, who's Matt LaFleur's brother, so I expect he's going to start the year dominating the touches, but we've seen it. We never really seen a full stretch of Tevin Coleman not only like staying on the field but also like holding on to a starting position. So he's a guy I'm not going to draft. I'm just going to be honest. And plus there are some questions if this New York offense will succeed. But they also have young guys behind him. Michael Carter, who they just drafted in this draft class, LaMichael Pirine, and Ty Johnson as well. Now, I would say this, that if I was going to bet on one of these running backs, it would be Michael Carter. I think that kid has some talent to be a quality 1-2 punch. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a bell cow type of back, but I think I could see this guy, Michael Carter, eventually taking over the starting role and dominating the touches out of the backfield. I mean, I like LaMichael Pirine, but he's more of a change of pace type of back. So if like anything happens to Tevin Coleman and Carter doesn't have to split those snaps and those touches out of the backfield with Coleman, I think I could see a way Carter could end up dominating the snaps out of the backfield at some point of this year. So kind of like I said about Travis Etienne on that Jaguars preview yesterday, if it's going to be a backfield like this, where, I mean, I'm sure right now Tevin Coleman's a starter, but I think they're going to sprinkle in Carter and they're going to sprinkle in Pirine, maybe Ty Johnson if he performs well in the preseason. So it's kind of smelling like a running back by committee to me. But so when it is a running back by committee, I usually like to bet on that rookie. If I got space on the bench, leave him right there. And then you got to hope by the midpoint of the year, he's going to take over and dominate those snaps out of the backfield. And he's a guy you can play in your flex, that RB2 range. Mike Carter is probably going to be an RB3 to flex. I don't know if I want to put him up to an RB2 this year, just because I think the Jets got the pieces in place to be successful on this offense, but we have to see that translate on the field. And taking a look at their wide receivers, like I said, they got a number of great wide receivers, which is kind of a bad thing for fantasy, in my opinion. But yeah, Corey Davis came over from Tennessee. He's a former first-round pick. He just never really has dominated at the next level, but he has been productive. He's not a guy I'm really screaming to go draft. I have been burned by him before, but if you want to take a chance on honestly, if you want to take a chance on any of these wide receivers in an offense that's probably going to end up being pass heavy because they're probably going to be playing catch up, like I mentioned earlier, for the most of the games, I totally get you taking Corey Davis later in your draft. Jamison Crowder, he's been a slot PPR machine. Maybe he can develop to be into Zach Wilson's trusty hand when he's on the field working out of the slot. But Jamison Crowder, as people probably know, as much as production he can do out of the slot, he also has his times where he just misses too many games. He gets banged up. So I mean, I like Jamison Crowder as a player, but from fantasy, this is not just fantasy. This is real life. Your best ability is availability. And unfortunately, Jamison Crowder just, he tends to get beat up throughout the course of the season. So that's a guy I'm not really going to actively draft, but kind of like Corey Davis. I get it. If you're taking any of these guys, you just eventually you want to end up hitting on who's ever going to receive the most of the targets. Now, Denzel Mims, the guy I really liked in last year's draft class. He kind of had an up and down year, but basically everybody did on that Jets team, and most of a down year just because of that coaching staff and everything they had going on the field with quarterback play and everything. But I think if there's anybody that's going to maybe take become very fantasy relevant, I do think it's going to be Denzel Mims. He can stretch out the boundary on the outside. He can go up and he's got a great catch radius. He can go up and win 50-50 balls. So I think if he could develop that chemistry with Zach Wilson in this training camp, I think he's the guy I'm willing to bet on at the later rounds in drafts, because he's going to be on the field. He should see plenty of targets, and then like I mentioned, I think this is going to end up being a pass-happy offense just because of the scoreboard, and I can see Denzel Mims, getting that 7+ touchdown range. I don't know if he's going to be able to crack 1,000 yards because there's so many guys, but I think out of everybody, he's the guy I'm going to bet on that'll at least see a bunch of red zone targets because of his size and, like I mentioned, his catch radius. Now, looking at the other wide receivers, though, they did sign Keelan Cole from the Jaguars. He's been fantasy relevant in the past. He can be a field stretcher. He's probably going to work in within the offense, working within snaps. So he's another guy that's going to take away targets from the other guys I just talked about. And then he drafted Elijah Moore in the second round, who can be an electric playmaker at the next level. He's another guy I think can have become fantasy relevant. Man, if you're going to bet on any Jets wide receivers, I'm saying you bet on Denzel Mims or Elijah Moore. I would avoid Corey Davis. I would avoid Jamison Crowder. And I would avoid Keelan Cole. If you draft those guys, I get it. Try to keep it to your last pick, and you're basically betting on them to end up being the target hog in this offense. But I always like to bet on youth in those situations. So either Denzel Mims or Elijah Moore, I get it. But I just wouldn't expect much out of a Jets fantasy receiver because we need to see what Zach Wilson's going to be at the end of the day at this next level. And then on top of that, like I said, you're talking about 5 different guys that could end up becoming a productive fantasy football player. Most of them are going to be your bench guys that you slide in during bye weeks. And I don't really see a guy becoming a week in, week out starter for your fantasy football lineup unless injuries maybe start to happen to this room. But if I was going to bet on somebody happen, again, Denzel Mims or Elijah Moore are the guys I would look to draft out of the wide receiver room from New York. All right, looking at their tight end, Christopher Herndon. I was talking about him earlier. He's a guy I've always liked. He just never really blossomed. He didn't really do much. He was used more as a blocker last year, so maybe that could change this year. And this tight end position within this Jets offense is something I am keeping my eye on. I am not drafting Christopher Herndon. I'm not drafting any other tight ends between Ryan Griffin, Tyler Kroft, and Kenny Yeboah. I'm kind of waiting and seeing how this plays out because keep in mind, they're bringing this basically, from what I understand, they're bringing the same offensive scheme from San Francisco to New York. Who was successful in San Francisco? George Kittle. And they also like to use another tight end. They like to kind of use 2 tight end sets. So there could be a path for a productive, maybe like a tight end 2, maybe a borderline tight end 1 in this offense if somebody emerges. The thing is, you got Christopher Herndon, who's got all the talent, who probably has more odds in his favor to be that guy. But Ryan Griffin's produced before in this league, so is Tyler Kroft, and obviously they kept Griffin and they brought Tyler Kroft in because obviously Christopher Herndon has not taken that next step. So maybe it's one of those guys. Now for me, I'm keeping my eye during the preseason on Kenny Yeboah. This kid, I didn't get too much in depth this last draft class because I was taking myself a personal break. But I've been getting catched up over the summer. I was actually watching an Ole Miss player for this next draft class the other week, and he was flashing to me in that game. So he has good receiving ability. I want to see if he can make the roster, and if he does, he's somebody I'm going to keep my eye on and see if he can emerge, but rookie tight ends typically don't. Now, looking at their offensive line, it's going to be very much improved this year. I think Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker, they both have all-pro potential, and they should lock down that blind side for Zach Wilson, which is good for him. Connor McGovern's a good veteran center. Morgan Moses is a good veteran right tackle. This is a much improved unit. And if they can all stay on the field and stay healthy, I think they can keep Zach Wilson up on the field looking, and he doesn't have to use his mobility as much. And if that happens, that's going to help Zach Wilson maybe become a fantasy valuable quarterback this year. Again, they all got to stay healthy because I know Mekhi Becton was in and out of the lineup last year. I think McGovern battled some injuries last year, if my memory serves me right. So as long as they can stay on the field, I think you got like about an already above average unit that could be pretty good if they can stay healthy. So as overall, I like this Jets offense. But again, like it's all going to come down to these young guys, molding together and trying to be competitive as possible because this is a pretty young offensive unit they got together. And then obviously looking at the notable backups, I've already covered most people, but I just want to point out, if something happens to Zach Wilson, They have James Morgan, who I think is a 4th or 5th round pick from last year. No playing experience. I don't think he got any games in last year as a backup to Sam Darnold. So if something happens to Zach Wilson, wide receivers and our fantasy value immediately drop. I would just so you guys know, there's no valuable quarterback that can come in and fill into it. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly take a look at the defense for you guys. Looking at their defensive front, I like it. This is the best part of their defensive unit. Is they definitely not only they upgraded the trenches on their offensive line, but they also upgraded their trenches in the defensive line. They signed Carl Lawson. Since 2018, Carl Lawson's tied for the 10th most quarterback hits. He's got 62. Quinnen Williams had a bounce back sophomore year. I totally expect him to be dominant in year 3 and start becoming that player everybody projected him to be in that draft class. Sheldon Rankins is a really good D tackle that they signed from the Saints. But he's always kind of struggled with injuries in his career, so he just needs to stay healthy. But man, if him and Quinnen can stay on the field, those two can dominate and let the linebackers flow all over the field and make tackles. And that also should make life easier on Carl Lawson to get to the quarterback and create those sack opportunities. And Vinny Curry's a veteran DN that knows how to get to the quarterback. So I really like this defensive front that the Jets have put together heading into the season. So I'm kind of curious how that works out for them. And they got some good, decent young guys behind them with Zuniga and Franklin Myers as well to have on the rotation. Now, as you move out of that defensive front, that's where you get your worries. I do like C.J. Mosley. I know people are down on him. He opted out last year, his first year with New York Jets. I think he got hurt in the 4th game or something and missed the whole year, so he basically hasn't played in 2 years. But he's a guy, I liked when he was playing with Baltimore. He can be a leader of a defense, and if he can play like he did 3 years ago for Baltimore, that's going to really help elevate the play of this defense. And then, like I've said, he's got 2 big boys in front of him that can help take up space so he can fly over the field and make plays. Gerard Davis is a former 1st-round pick, hoping to bounce back his career in New York. We'll see if that can work out. Blake Cashman's been an all right guy since entering the league. He just gets the job done when he's on the field. Nothing special, but he gets the job done. As far as their secondary, though, man, it's going to need some work. So, Bryce Hall is a guy out of Virginia Tech last year that he came in hurt, if I remember right. He kind of got some playing time last year. He's a guy I think has what it takes to be a pretty good starting corner in the league. Marcus May, obviously, I talked about him earlier. He's a leader on this defense. He can make plays out of the secondary, and he's going to have to hold it down back there. And then Ashton Davis is a guy I really liked. He was a top 5 safety for me in that draft class, and I think he can be a playmaker and fly. He's got crazy track speed. So he's another guy though that's battled injuries. He battled injuries in college. I think he was banged up in the draft process because I don't think he played at the Senior Bowl that year, and then he got a little banged up last year too. So his biggest concern is his health. But as long as he can stay on the field, I think him and Marcus May can form a pretty good safety tandem. So they got some good pieces on this defense. Like I said, I really like their defensive front. I think Mosley can have a bounce back year. I hope he does in terms of just being a fan of his game. And then I like the Marcus May and Ashton Davis combination. But other than that, this defense needs a lot of work. As you can see, there's a lot of prospect encyclopedia guys that they're depending on. That's not a bad thing. That just means they have a lot of guys that don't have a lot of NFL experience in this league. Because we can remember, to be in that book, you have to have from the last 3 draft classes, and you have to have less than 12 career starts. So a lot of youth on this New York Jets defense. So how I view the New York Jets defense is they are going to have struggles this year. But I'll say this, if that defensive front I keep on talking up about New York, if they can have some dominant stretches, they can maybe get their defense out of a funk and get off the field. I think they can definitely be a defense that's a good run stuffing defense. I just think if they don't get to the quarterback, within those first 3 seconds of the snap, 3 to 4 seconds of the snap, they're might have some struggles in their coverage, and teams are going to be able to pick them apart in the air. And then as far as looking at it as a fantasy defense, this is not a defense I'm trying to go get. Yes, they got some pieces there, but this defense is at least at minimum a year away, with adding a bunch of more pieces within it. It's probably more of a 2 years away from being a good defense. But in week one, they do have the Carolina Panthers. I'll just explain this really quick. I don't pick defenses and keep them. I literally stream defenses. I pick up a new defense every week unless the list of defense I have has a good matchup the following week. So when I draft my defenses before the NFL season starts, I always look at their week one matchup and see who they face. They got the Panthers, so they are facing Sam Darnold. So that is somewhat kind of intriguing, because you got the Jets going against their former quarterback. You got their former quarterback maybe wants to get revenge against the Jets, but that quarterback loves to he doesn't love to turn over the ball, but his whole career basically he's turned over the ball between fumbles and interceptions. So you could bet on that if you wanted to stream the Jets. I just want it because you got Joe Brady down there with CMC coming back. They got Robbie Anderson. I mean, I'm going to preview the Panthers later on in August at some point. So either way, they got a bunch of weapons that can beat up this Jets defense. It's something I'm not willing to gamble on. I'll look elsewhere. I'd have to be in a super desperate situation to stream the Jets defense, pretty much not only just in week one, but in pretty much throughout the year. But yeah, that's the preview of the Jets. As far as this team as a whole, to go ahead and wrap this up, I mean, like I said, I could see a scenario where this offense is fun to watch. Defense is going to go through some serious growing pains this year. So they're going to struggle. This is a team that's going to be, I don't know how to say this, but it's going to be like a 3-4 fun win team. It's a team that I think they're going to maybe lose a lot of close games because of how young they are. And maybe they can catch fire at the end of the season and try to carry some momentum into next year. They're definitely not competing for a playoff spot this year. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think they're going to be a lot more fun to watch compared to last year. That's definitely for sure. But yeah, this is the video on the Jets preview. Like I mentioned yesterday, if anything comes out about the Jets that is newsworthy that I want to share my opinion on between now and my full season preview that I'll do right before the season kicks off, I will hop on, share a 5-10 minute video on that. Other than that, please make sure you do like this video. Please make sure you have subscribed to my YouTube channel so you're getting the updates when these come on. And then my next video I plan on doing will be the Houston Texans. Again, I'm kind of following the draft order from worst to best. So Houston will be in line. Like I mentioned, I'm going to try to pump out one of these every day until my friends come down here. Then there might be a break. I'll keep you guys updated on that. Other than that, yeah, go pre-order the Prospect Encyclopedia. I messed up in yesterday's video. I said my Twitter banner. No, I mean, go to my YouTube banner. There's a little link you can click on to go order the Prospect Encyclopedia. I think that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you when I get that Texans video in. Later.